Hello ladies and gentlemen, how you doing today? My name is Bilify, and today we're gonna counter a glove. Which glove is that? Why, of course, the excavator glove! Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing today? My name is Bilify. Today I am joined by some amazing goobers who are gonna help me out in testing out some counters for this brand new excavator glove. We have ourselves Jem. Shout out to you, Jem. Thanks for helping out. We have ourselves Andrew. Make sure you go out and subscribe to Andrew. Thank you so much for helping me out. And we also have Biohazard here. Thank you, Bio. Make sure you go drop a subscription to Bio as well. Let's go ahead and start and get into these counters. Alrighty, coming in with the first counter, it's gonna be all the rocks. Of course it's gonna be able to stop this. You can go ahead and just sit in a rock and you're not gonna get hit. You're not gonna get hit. I'll show you. But first, it could be diamond, it can be Megarock, and it can be custom. Any of those work. So we will try and dig our way into the rock, and we're just gonna bounce right off of it. With one of the craziest counters, the Z glove. The Z glove will actually nullify and not let an excavator go to work. So the Z glove is absolutely a counter. So the next counter on the list is the flash glove. Can you use this to escape a mole tunneling towards you? As a flash user, as soon as you see them go into mole form, just flash away. They cannot make up that distance. They're way too slow. You'll be safe every time. Just don't go directly at them. Then that gives them the opportunity to hit you. So the interesting thing with Swapper and many of the gloves that we're about to see is you cannot do things to a mole that is already tunneling. And I mean the excavator, but I call them moles because they look like moles underground. But you cannot do anything to them while they're underground. So if the Swapper user tries to teleport, it will teleport somebody else in their place. And if there's nobody to teleport, the ability just won't activate. So this makes Swapper not a perfect counter. It is a counter because 90% of the time there's going to be other people on the battlefield that you can teleport, but there is going to be opportunities where it's just going to be a one-on-one and the mole user will win that battle. So keep that in mind. But Swapper, I'd say 70% counter. Of course, you could always use Ghost's hidden ability to come up and slap them and they'll never see you coming, so this works against this glove. Another great counter that I really don't have to show you any footage of is Thanos. Just make sure you set your mark, and once you do that, as soon as you get knocked off the edge, just go back. You're not going to have that hard of a time struggling against an excavator glove using Thanos, so I highly recommend this as a counter. So the next counter is not a perfect counter, but it's a funny one. You can actually use the fork glove and set up a wall in front of you to blockade a mole that's traveling at you. It's pretty funny. Alright, so the mole will go underground, it'll travel at the fort user, make sure you place the wall early, but they run head first into it, and you know, this ability kind of bugs out when it runs into a wall. It's really funny when it does. So as long as you're setting the wall down early on time, you could definitely block them. Just beware that they can definitely go around the wall if you set it down too early or if it's too close. So again, not a perfect counter, a funny one. And right next to our dear friend fort, we have ourselves the magnet glove. This is perfect for after, not before, after, because you can't target a mole underground. You're gonna take this glove, and as soon as you get hit by the mole, you're gonna go and magnet right back to them. That's how you're gonna use this glove as a counter. So we can definitely recommend that magnet is great for a comeback. Now we're on a third glove in a row. That rarely happens. We have our pusher. We can definitely use a pusher to push them away. This is actually one of the only kind of gloves that actually will stop a mole underground. The bad part though is this is not actually a counter because the mole has an animation that plays. You can compare the ability to the kinetic ability, as it can give an excavator user knockback reduction, or it can do that little phase thing because there's an animation that plays. So in doing so, the pusher wall will stop them from hitting you, but it will not kill them, so it's not a long-term solution. On to the next counter. We ruined our streak because of Anchor. Boo, Anchor. No, kidding. I love Anchor glove, actually, but I'm getting sidetracked. You can absolutely use the space glove to jump over a little goober that's traveling underground. They're not going to be able to touch you when you're in space. Next up, we have ourselves the dream glove. You can 1000% outrun a mole underground with the dream glove. They cannot catch you. It's not physically possible unless you run right back into them, or you somehow corner yourself in a circle. So the mole jumps in the ground trying to chase the dream, but the dream just walks away. Just walks away. They're that fast. Dream, absolutely a great counter. The next counter we can use that works out really well is Golden's ability. When you're in the ability, you don't take any knockback. The mole user dives into the ground thinking they have an easy kill, but alas, they arrive upon a Golden user who has their ability popped. So Golden is a great counter. Next up on the counter sheet, we have our friend Cheeky. Now during the testing of this, we had Andrew. He was taking a little bit more knockback than usual. We don't know if it was the server or if it's this glove. Regardless of that scenario itself though, this glove still will easily save you from falling off the edge because of how fast Cheeky can roll. Definitely, I do recommend Cheeky just due to the fact that you can escape them by just rolling away, or you can use the rolling method to get back from a ragdoll faster. The next counter on this list is the Replica glove. You can actually not hit a Replica clone with the Excavator ability. You can only slap it. So if you wanted to sit back and throw Replica clones at somebody who's targeting you if they're using the Excavator glove, then you can absolutely watch them try to slap it because they can definitely not use their ability on it. So the next counter on this list, which actually surprised me a little bit, is defense. You wouldn't think that a defense would be able to stop it just due to the fact that it's knockback AoE, and they are kind of really close next to the wall, but watch what happens when a user tries to use this ability and runs into the wall of a defense. It kind of just bugs out. It won't happen the exact same way, the exact same time, every single time. It will have some variations, like it can flame you or do any other random things, but it's just odd. It doesn't really work well with walls as partners. On to the next counter on this list, reverse. Not gonna lie to you, the reverse glove actually surprised me at first. I thought that the reverse user was still gonna take knockback, but they don't. They transfer the knockback back over to the user. But the user who used the excavator doesn't take the knockback because they're still in the animation like I was talking about earlier. So it kind of just evens out and dies out. So the next counter you can use to counter the excavator glove is the Adios gloves. It's the exact same thing as the Thanos glove. Now the blocked glove, it surprisingly does not work. That and buddies do not work on this list, so I'm not going to show you any videos on it. They can still get hit by knockback, so keep away from blocked and buddies. You can use engineer as a deterrent, but that's not a counter. We can actually use Rocky to throw a boulder and hinder their progress. You have to be really accurate though. Keep that in mind for this glove. When you're a Rocky and you see them go underground, build up that rock and throw it. Look at this. It can hinder them and make them go off of their path and stop them. Now they can dodge it definitely if they move out of the way, but most of the time it will do that if you land it far away. Up close, it's not good. Far away, yes. Another glove that is a great counter is the Phantom glove. You're invisible and you're moving faster. You can definitely evade. If you run back into them, then you're probably not going to evade, but just avoid them with the Phantom glove. You should be safe. You can 1000% use a wormhole to evade them. Just make sure you have them set up before. As soon as you see them digging towards you, just go into the hole and you're gone. This is the part where I usually say you can use track and table flip to keep them at distance, which you can, but only for table flip I would say that. Track actually has a different purpose here. We can actually take the track, and if you use it before, you can actually counter. But it also works in the way with Swapper is if they're already underground, you're not going to be able to target them. But if it's already on them before they go underground, it will follow them down there with them. As you can see, as soon as he goes underground, it just travels above him, which is hilarious, but it's still on him and ready to blow up. Making the track glove a decent counter. Falling in line with the table flip, you can use the ping pong to keep them at distance from you, but you cannot hit them if they're underground. So with Baller, it's just like the Replica glove, although Baller will not target a mole that's already underground, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't take the AoE splash, so Baller can be considered a counter against an excavator user. The Slicer glove works exactly like the table flip glove, as it will keep them at bay. Now the God's Hand will absolutely counter, and it will dig up a mole, which is hilarious. If you're a God's Hand and you have your ability ready, as soon as you see them go into their mole form, just pop their ability and look, it will drag them out of the ground while you're in the ability, and there is nothing you can do to prevent what is about to happen next. Next up on the counter list, we have Acrobat, which will absolutely work. As soon as you see them start digging towards you, Acrobat in the opposite direction. Don't let them get close to you. They won't be able to catch up. So next up on the list here, we have Redacted. Now this isn't like a full counter. This is sort of something that may or may not work, depending on your situation. But if you have a mole coming directly at you, you can use this ability and stand underneath it. So that way when they hit you, they get snuck and stuck right up inside of the Redacted portal. It's not the greatest of counters, but if used right, it can work. Bus is not a counter, so the only reason why you're seeing this clip is because I want to show you sometimes the graphical error that happens only on the user side. Other people cannot see me walking on top of the surface here. It's very funny looking, and it happens with a couple gloves. Next up on the list, we have what I like to call all reliable, Phase. You're not gonna die with Phase against this glove. Phase counters so many gloves that you should expect Phase to counter everything, and when it doesn't, you should freak out. But as soon as the Phase goes into the invincibility mode, guess what? It's not taking knockback. Now in this scenario, Warp would work. As soon as you get hit, you can teleport back, but setting up the entire process, I just don't think it's worth it, and you should use a different glove. But now we're on to Bomb, Bubble, Jet, and Shard. All of those gloves I usually recommend for distance fight, but this one is not something that's going to be useful because if you watch, the actual glove is resistant to explosions when it's underneath the ground and nothing affects it. And both Bubble and Shard need something on the surface to hit, making that every single one of these gloves cannot be used if there's an attentive user of an excavator. The next counter is Bob, but you have to use Bob correctly. But Bilify, what do you mean correctly? What I mean is you can't cast Bob when the user is underground because it's just like the swapper, it will not target them. You have to cast it when they're up above ground, because then when they go underneath the ground, it's like Tracker, it still goes for them and can still eat them alive. Another week, another Jupiter counter. You can't go wrong with a knockback reducer. The mole goes right for you thinking you're an easy target, and then you pop up, surprise him, and hit him, but you're already back on the ground because you have Jupiter and you are heavy. With that being said, for Jupiter, you can also use the Jupiter mode on the hybrid glove. Next up, we have the Slapple glove. You can absolutely use Slapple to avoid being hit and jump sky high. As soon as you see the mole goober coming for you, just hit the button, get in the air, you're safe. That's it. As always, you can always disarm them beforehand, but we're not looking for that. Dominance can actually work here with the speed boost, but you have to be a little bit more finite on how you move because you can get out of your area really easily if you get trapped. So you will see the mole user start to chase you down, and you just have to make sure you don't go to a specific area where you can get trapped, and you can easily outrun them. So I quickly want to talk about Larry real quick. It's not a counter. If you were just to use a normal Larry on one of these users, they can use their ability to get Larry to stop targeting them, like if they were to use a Megarock. But the difference between Megarock and this is, if when you are using a Megarock and you slap a Larry user and go into Megarock form, Larry will stop chasing you, but in this form, Larry will continue to chase you. The problem though is, you're still in that animation, so the Larry knockback is not going to send them off the cliff, making Larry nowhere near a counter, and making the Excavator glove a counter against a Larry. Next up, we have the Charge glove, and it is an absolute counter. As soon as you see them mulling towards you, just charge out of there. If you can't escape them, and you're not fast enough, how did you get the Charge glove in the first place? The Tycoon finally making an appearance after a couple episodes. It's definitely a counter if you get up to the speed boost part. It's gonna be tough, but you can make it. Now, glitch isn't a counter, it's more of a deterrent. Think of it more or less like the magnet glove, where you're gonna use this after you've already been hit, and it will drag the user into the glitch. It will not work beforehand, or while they're in the dirt, you have to use it after. Don't use the Elude glove, as it can definitely be hit by the ability. Now we're on to Fish, which is 1,000,000% one of the best counters that you can use. As soon as you just get hit, just flop right back into the arena. Love this glove. Now, Voodoo's another one of these gloves that's not a counter, but it has interesting parts that you should definitely see. The Excavator glove is actually a top counter against the Voodoo because they can actually get rid of the clone by going underground, which is crazy. So the Excavator is a top tier counter, but it's not the best because look, the ability does not hit clones. Moving over to Leash. Leash, I wouldn't say is a counter, it's just more or less hilarious. If you as a Leash were to slap an Excavator before they use their ability, and they somehow stand up by like a jet blast or by a brick, the user stands up, they use this ability, they get stuck and they can't move, and then they get stuck like this, which is hilarious. It's like a star T-pose. The Leash is like 50-50 for me because it all depends on how well you can use a glove. If you can slap them, yeah, you can absolutely counter them, but you have to be careful on not letting them get hit by like a jet blast or anything like that they could stand up and do that weirdness with. Another cool thing to note is that the Excavator glove actually counters the Flamarang glove and deletes it or bypasses them, which is crazy. As always, you can use the Kinetic blast as like a one-time tab glitch in a way. That'll save you from a knockback. Sparky is 50-50. If the mole is close to you, then you're probably not going to get away because it's going to take you well to start up, but if you are able to get start up and go fast, it doesn't take much to be faster than a mole, so you can counter them that way. For the next counter on the list, we have Boogie, which absolutely works because not only is it a counter, it's a deterrent. What happens is they will come up beneath you and hit you with the shockwave, but then they get stuck in the dancing and you just walk back and you slap them. So it's either they want to do a trade-off or they lose, and it's just not worth it for them, so I think Boogie is a fantastic counter. Now the next, Recall is going to make it back into the counters list. As soon as you get hit, just use the ability and you're going to fly right back up. Just don't use it too late. Quake is not a counter, but it's another one of these gloves that gives you this graphical error, but only for you, nobody else. Next up on the list, we have ourselves the Psycho glove. Now this glove for me is a 50-50 because it works in kind of a mysterious way. So if a Psycho user slaps you and you dig underground, they can actually pull you out, but not pull you out at the same time. Because as soon as they release you or you come up, you still cast your ability, which if you remember, I've been talking about it all video, it has an animation. So you're not going to get the knockback and the push from the Psycho user. So Psycho is not a counter in that sense. It is, however, possible to counter the Excavator glove with the Psycho by just using your jump and flight ability to avoid the knockback from the Excavator's ability. Next up on the list, we have the Counter glove, which all this glove is basically a knockback deterrent. So when the Excavator user hits the Counter glove, you can see it just makes them go into that ragdoll mode. One of the side notes for the Excavator users, you can actually counter a counter in this ability if you slap and use your ability at the exact same time because you can mole out of there. Only one animation out of the 3 though. Now Now, last but not least, we have Hammer. Now, Hammer, I wouldn't say is like a good counter. It's more or less something that has a very interesting factor to it. This right here is why I wouldn't call it a counter, because if they time it right, you can absolutely nullify a hammer hit. But the interesting factor to it is if they don't time it right and they get to 0, it will wait for them to rise out of the ground and then it will hit them. Before we end this video, I just want to say, look at all these awesome goobers, man. We got ourselves the goober tag, and the certified goober tag. Look at all these awesome people. Make sure you go subscribe to Biohazard. Thank you so much. Absolutely a W human being. Make sure you go subscribe to yourself to Andrew there. Absolutely W human being. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much, Carl. I don't know if you have a channel. You're still awesome, though. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that every single one of you have an amazing rest of your day or night whenever you do end up watching this counters video. Make sure you let me know which one surprised you, because there was a couple. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Later! Reversed it. I'm on top now.